Welcome to Directionally Correct, a People Analytics podcast with Cole and Scott, and today's guest, Yuyan Sun, Head of People Analytics and Systems at Motive. Hey, Directionally Correct fans. If you're looking to stay connected to the podcast, make sure to subscribe to our Substack newsletter, watch our videos on YouTube, or listen to the podcast on your app of choice. This podcast is dedicated to you to help educate and entertain you on how to effectively do people analytics. We are a listener-supported podcast, so please consider becoming a patron. If you'd like to support the podcast by becoming a patron, you can find a link to sign up in the show notes or at patron.podbean.com/directionallycorrect. Thanks for being a listener. All opinions are our own and do not reflect those of any other organization. You want to talk about not going to school to the third grade?
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Well, what's that like?
Are we starting? Are we ever
This is it.
started?
This is the podcast.
Is this a podcast? Oh gosh.
I intentionally wanted to make this one a little bit more relaxed and less structured. So
Okay, cool.
well, I can start over if that helps. But
Let's start over and get into the rhythm. Yeah.
well, I that's the point. I kind of don't want to be in a rhythm. I want it to just feel natural because I feel like we had a really good conversation the other day.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wish the podcast was just this.
Yeah.
And so I was like, why don't we just make the podcast this? So
Shouldn't I like introduce myself to your
No.
audience and stuff? Okay.
Nope. Unless you want to.
No.
Hey, this is Yuyan Sun. She's here. Welcome, Yuyan.
I'm here. Okay. So let's talk about my untraditional education path.
If you want,
Yeah.
or we can talk later. That's why I wanted to put a ball in your court.
Yeah. Well, sure. I didn't go to school until third grade, and that was a great experience. Like, I actually really liked it, having extended time of just like not going to school. Like, I really don't like school, and you know, when I think about not having to go until I was like 9 and practically spent like 8 years of my life and just like, you know, hanging around in a little village with my animals, my ducks, my chickens, my little friends who also don't go to school because they their families never wanted to educate them, but my parents actually did, and we didn't really have, where I grew up was a kind of a little village in China, and we didn't have like really good schools there. So my parents kind of wanted to hold me off and you know, for a few years so that they could like, you know, make enough money and moved me to a bigger city to get educated. So, and they, you know, wasn't able to do that until I was older. And then so when I did go to school, it was a big change for me because I went from like living in a, you know, little village, isolated and not having any expectation to meet, and just like get dropped into an environment where I think everyone was like a lot more mature than me. Like it's already like ingrained in them that there are certain rules that you have to follow, and you know, and then there's a certain kind of like social ethique that you have to follow to like make friends and you know, show up as like this like, you know, respecting a respectful little person. And I just all of it was like very new to me, and I was constantly being challenged in my own worldview. Like, am I right? Am I wrong? How do I like, you know, fit in this group? And you know, being China too, like, you know, the country has a large population, so every class has about like 60 kids. So it's the very large class, and then so for me to like, you know, obviously if you had kids passing that age, is that, you know, the class of 60 kids is like a little society, and your kid learn about all of the, you know, ebbs and flows about living in a group, and, you know, and about little societal politics that you're in. I was new to all of that, and my coping mechanism was very like observation based right? So I kind of like observe how other people act, and I learn to kind of just like, hold my own thought. I hold back on what I'm thinking, what I wanted to say, how I wanted to act, and to say how other people are reacting in this situation. And I think I just like learned to cope that way for many years. And I think, that's probably, if I really like dig into my past, like that's how I started developing the skill sets for people analytics, which is like pattern recognition in human behaviors, right? And really try to make sense of that behavioral pattern. Why are they acting differently towards like this teacher versus another one? Like, what were the personality traits that make you popular in a group? So that kind of stuff really intrigued me, and yeah, and that's how I got started.
Do you feel like an outsider?
I do feel like an outsider, like a lot of times. I think there was a period in my life that I didn't feel like an outsider. And then, and then I came to America.
Mm-hmm.
I came over in 2010, and I felt like an outsider ever since. And I think, maybe the recent years is it's been 15 years since I lived here. Maybe the last like 1 or 2 years, I stopped feeling like a complete outsider. And I think now I feel like maybe like 20% of an outsider still.
What do you think changed?
Time had a big impact on it. I built my life here, and I have a husband, I'm married, I worked in few organizations and made friends, and I found my position in work, in society. I have networks, like that kind of stuff changed. I start to feel like, I think the supporting network for us humans, group animal, and it's having that kind of supporting network for any individual, I think is just very important. But yeah, I still don't know. Like, people ask me, where are you from? I used to always tell them, oh, I come from China. And recently I started to say I live in Atlanta. And I'm hesitant to say things like, oh, I call Atlanta home, because it doesn't feel like a home to me, and I just I don't think anywhere feels like a home to me.
Does the people analytics community feel like a home?
No. Does anybody call a profession home?
Weirdly, I think actually some people do.
Really?
But I can understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
It may not feel that way.
I mean, I do like people analytics. I often reflect on how I got in the field, and question like, how did I just get into this random field and just fell in love with it?
Yeah.
If I had fell into another field, would I, equally love it? Like, is it really just about me loving something that I do, or that I devote my time to, or is it really this is the right field, the right calling for me, and I just found it serendipity.
Yeah, like let me build on that, because like I think in some ways we share this notion of what if you figured out that you were naturally very observant of human behavior, and you happen to be overly analytical at the same time?
Yeah.
What professions might actually reward that kind of predisposition?
Yeah.
I think people analytics is where it's at,
Well, or you can be like a life coach, a therapist.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so can everyone else.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, I think not everybody can do people analytics.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
What do you think are some special attributes
Of people analytics for you?
people who are good at people analytics?
Well, I think this is why I was building on what you were saying is, I think there's some people that just do this to do this.
Mhm.
And I don't think they're naturally predisposed to it. And
Yeah.
frankly, I think those people are usually the ones that really take to like building dashboards and just like, I'm really good at building dashboards. I'm really good at running SQL queries.
Yeah.
Like, great, but you're not necessarily good at people analytics. You're just building a skill that seems to be transferable to multiple fields, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas others who are like, this is something that I truly understand at a deep level.
Yeah.
And these tools and these mechanisms are just pathways for me enacting, trying to understand that and influence decisions in the real world.
Yeah.
And that to me is qualitatively different.
Yeah.
And
I think that's a really good point. For me, when I've met people analytics, when I got to know it as a field, it really felt like something that answered my questions. It's some kind of it's an answer that I had been looking for that I didn't know I was looking for. I think I remember it was like, around 2015, my first job being a kind of a line HR kind of role. And I, started reading stuff about people analytics. And I realized that's something, I didn't know existed, a tool or set of tools that I didn't know existed that could answer a lot of questions that I couldn't answer about myself, right? Why certain group of people, why two people who work in the same environment diverge in their choices of decisions in reaction to the same event? Like, I was fascinated about that question. I couldn't answer it. And I realized that Qantics provides me with the tools and the insights to be able to answer that question at large. So I think it does fulfill some kind of, a need that was deeply embedded in me.
that's fascinating. What need does people analytics fulfill for the world, for the businesses we work for the organizations we support?
Yeah. I think the need is to be able to make good decisions about this huge investment that you've made as a part of your business. And I think the fact that I would always love to someone to enlighten me why we as a field is so new, because I think that it expands, given the expanse of people in any organization, business owners should have been asking this question long time ago about how to better utilize this part of their investment, right? And I think there's a lot of the way that we've been utilizing humans there has a lot of assumptions built in it, right? There was a one time where we say, oh, we have to basically create organization is a machine, and every worker, every employee is a bolt in this machine, and we have to utilize that way. That means create a very boxed in job description and provide you and make sure that we evaluate how employees hit every single checkbox, right? There was used to be that one school of thought, and it has evolved from there. But I think that with people analytics, we've come to a stage where we now have the technology and data and insights that can provide businesses with that intelligence to make decisions about people. And not doing that is almost as if you're making a complex life decision, like purchasing a property, as your primary home, and you're not considering the needs of the people who live in it. You're not considering how many people, how old they are, what their preferences. You don't really care about it. You're just wanting to, buy a house in the best, that provides you with the best ROI possible. And that's not going to work out.
Do you think you can learn about how to do people analytics on LinkedIn?
Do I think I can learn about how to do people analytics on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
It's a great question, and that's a tricky one. I think that's how I learned about people analytics was on LinkedIn. I think when I was writing my recent series analyzing the past 10 years of a trend history of people analytics, I said I've always utilized David Green's newsletter as my kind of one of the primary sources of learning, and I was very honest about that. I found David Green on LinkedIn many years ago, and and I've, used LinkedIn as a primary source of learning. I don't know so much about LinkedIn anymore. And, I think
This kind of sucks, right?
yes, it sucks. I think that, I think I told you about this. There was one point of time very recently I wanted to build, reputation on LinkedIn. I wanted to get famous on LinkedIn. And I think you're one of the first people that I talked to. And then what I was concerned about then was like, I don't know if I should write. I don't know if I should pose myself as an expert in LinkedIn yet. I feel like, compared to you and David Green and other giants in our industry, I'm so green. I'm so new. I don't know if I have anything to offer. And you're one of the people that encourage me, just like, just don't worry about what other people think. Just like, say what you want to say. And I started doing that, and very quickly I started to realize I hate it. And I think the reason is because we live in an age where we mix credibility with publicity. Because I learned about people analytics or, really anything related to my professional growth. And I've always used LinkedIn as one of the primary resources as learning. I had this notion of like linking my own credibility with my exposure, with my visibility on LinkedIn. But when I started posting and I realized it's all about publicity, how do you structure a post in a way that the algorithm will push to more people? And that really just sucks. So yeah, like I will still continue to post in LinkedIn, and probably just don't really care about the clicks and likes and stuff like that. But yeah, like I think the whole like social media algorithm on LinkedIn is really not rewarding the behaviors that are that are related to credibility anymore. And for users, for the people who are still wanting to learn from LinkedIn, I think that is a bad news, because the algorithm will push you content that are kind of angled with emotions, angled with feelings, rather than um kind of facts and science, that things that you really need to know to be good at your jobs.
Well, so we wrote the first part one of the evolution of people analytics over the last 10 years together, and then you completed the whole entire series. Why'd you do it, and what did you learn from that?
So the reason why I did it are twofold. One, I'm a when I wrote it, it was the first decades that I have worked in this industry, and I kind of wanted to hold a little memorial for it. Uh,
Well, totem.
yeah, exactly. And another reason was really because I wanted a side project for me to really be hands-on with LLM and prompt engineering. I use those skills at work, but I wanted a project where I can be like really dedicated with my time and just like experiment on LM. So, I thought that so if you have you obviously have read the article, but for any audience, if you have read the article, with the approach we took is how we analyzed David Green's newsletter for the past 10 years, right? And basically fed all of that articles to AI, to LLM, and ask it to analyze these articles and output trends of the industry based on what has been discussed in David's newsletters. So that has been a really good use case for Gen AI, I think, and I've learned a lot about this technology during this process.
Any of it help you in your day job?
Oh, absolutely. I think prompt engineering is one great thing, right? I think that there are different schools of thoughts before different schools of thoughts in that I have heard before I really approach this project. Some say that you can just like talk to Gen AI as if you are talking to a human, which I think it works to extent. And, another school of thought is that you really need to understand how the model is built and, and really like, give it like very clear instructions. What I have found, work really well is kind of a mix in between. I started to learn to use it as if this is a very kind of junior assistant that I have to provide structures and frameworks for, and just have it and give it flexibility within the framework that we set for it, and ask it to be creative. So, and I think I used a technique that I didn't even know at the time I was doing it, which is called LM in the loop. Basically, you give your AI agent instruction that is somewhat broad, right? And ask it to be creative, ask it to be flexible, and have it bring you answers back. And then you start to feed it frameworks. And with every iterations of your framework, you provide it with some kind of measuring mechanism. You can ask it to score itself, or you can provide that scoring. You can say, I give this answer like a 7 out of 10. Here is what you need to be 9 out of 10, and it'll give you a better answer. So you kind of have this circular interaction going on. At the end of the day, it'll provide you an extremely well articulated answer.
Oh yeah, that's like what Keiki and I were writing about recently.
Yeah,
that was interesting. What do you think about dashboards?
I think a dashboard is going to die.
Why are they going to die, and is that a good or a bad thing?
First of all, I think it is a good thing. The reason why I think it is going to die is because with Gen AI, humans' expectation on how we retrieve information is going to fundamentally change, and it has already changed. I've built dashboards before, and lots of dashboards before, and most of my interactions with a stakeholder when I present that dashboard goes like this. Hey, here's a dashboard, and I'll walk them through all of the charts on these dashboards. And the stakeholder will say, well, can you filter on that thing, department or a job level? And I will go ahead and fiddle with those filters. And they'll say, well, okay, that's great to see. Can you turn that bar chart into a line chart so I can see what is the recent trend? And they'll ask a question like, oh, why is this person not showing up on this chart? And then at the end, they're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, this is really great. I think for the next step, I just need this dashboard to have 4 other additional filters and have like a line chart version of this bar chart, right? So most of my interactions are like this, and that conversation starts to really sound like a conversation you would have with ChatGPT in 2023, right? Now, when your stakeholders want to know about something about your organization, their first instinct is to go to a chatbot and be like, hey, like, what is the recent trend on attrition for, my sales group? And they're going to expect the GenAI model to say, oh, I'm thinking about it. Here's a whole article about the recent attrition trend, right? Because that's how how people are processing information, how doing research now. And just like how TikToks or short videos have shortened the attention span for entertainment. Now it's gonna be hard pressed to find any kid, in a Gen Z or any generation after Gen Z, I don't even know what they're called, to be really like interested in kind of watching a film or several films in an afternoon anymore. Like when I was a kid, we used to have like movie marathon weekends with my friends. I don't think you find any kids doing that these days. Because our attention span has really been shortened by short form videos, and Gen AI has really shortened the attention span for us to do research. I think you're not gonna find a lot of stakeholders who have the patience to wait for you to go back and fiddle with that dashboard and come back 3 days later and give them the answer that they asked 3 days ago. Like today when I was using Gemini, and it took, I don't know, like longer than usual, a minute to think about the answer, and I was like, is there something wrong with my network? Like maybe I should just start a new chat with the bots because it's taking very long. So I think that is going to really challenge the use cases that we have for dashboards in over the last decade in our industry.
So let's say you have a free weekend right now. What movie are you doing a movie bender of marathon?
I'm not doing movie marathons anymore either. I have short attention spans. The only time I really hate is I'm not a very big fan of movies. And then the only time I really have like focused time, watching movies or yeah, like really just, I think it's really just like watching movies is when I'm on flight. The only time I'm really watching movies are on flights anymore. Because I get like undisrupted time and I've got nothing else to do, and I'll just watch a movie for 90 minutes. And in my spare time, I really don't do it anymore.
So what parts of people analytics jobs exist 2 years from now, and what parts are AI doing or augmenting?
I think the ones that are just about coding and, like you said, just about building dashboards are going to be replaced by AI. And I think
Don't a lot of people in people analytics, that's what they do?
yeah, and that's a scary thing. I think if you're one of those people and hear me say this, and I think it's very realistic. I spent a lot of time in my career building technical skills. I never learned to build a dashboard or learn to code when I was in school. So I learned all of those things while doing my job, and used to pride myself in being able to build dashboards and write code. And I don't think I think the value of pure technical skills are going to reduce. You're still expected to learn how to code, because if you know how to code, you are going to be better at prompt engineering with AI. It'll be faster for you to get the optimal answer from the Gen AI models. However, if your entire skill set is just about knowing the right syntax to write, knowing the most optimized code structure, that part is definitely being replaced by AI, I think. And another skill set that is being replaced by AI is what I think a lot of people call storytelling, but really is just interpreting the data, right? The sales department has a higher attrition level than the engineering department. Like, that's something that you can read from a chart. And when I interview candidates for people analytics roles today, and I give them a storytelling assignment, that is still a lot of the answers that I'm getting back. And I'm sorry to say that is totally something that I can just I can feed a chart to a Gen AI model and have it interpreted back to me in a better way. I think that the requirement for storytelling is going to be so much more advanced than what we're teaching people analytics, like entry-level people analytics, professionals in school today.
Who is Shane McCauley, and why is he the coolest person in people analytics that nobody knows about?
Shane McCauley is my boss, and he used to be your boss as well. Well, I think I've told you why I think Shane is cool. I wanted to.
Yeah, but I want the people to hear it. I don't want me to hear it.
No, but I want to hear from you. Why do you think Shane is the coolest person in people analytics?
I think it's because he was the most chill, down-to-earth person by orders of magnitude I'd ever met in this space. Like, if you and I have non-traditional backgrounds for people analytics, like, he definitely has that. But he always had such a measured, insightful, but also like sort of like a hipster mixed with a surfer mixed with a guy who lives in Portland attitude to everything that was just so chill that, I don't know, might be the coolest guy I've ever worked for. So
Yeah,
a big fan of Shane. But what do you think?
definitely agree. I think on top of what you said about Shane, what I love about him is that this guy really is doing HR because he loves it. And I think it's hard to find this kind of. He has spent many years in HR, and still after all of the ups and downs and ebbs and flows, and still really truly believe that HR has an immense value to add to any organizations. I think it's hard to find.
Do you believe HR has an immense value to add to organizations?
I do.
Okay.
And I don't know if I would still believe it, 20 years from now. But at this moment, I definitely do. And I think if I didn't work in people analytics, I would probably not believe it as much as I do today. Really, like when I'm thinking about the analysis I did on the past 10 years of trends, one of the biggest insights that I had from that work is we're just getting started. People analytics grew up in an era with explosive technological development. So a lot of our quests, almost I would say, like, had been distracted by technology. When we were still in the infant stage, we had already been like, talking about, all of these like technological disruptions. So we started to build all of these like dashboards or network analysis, skill based. Like every couple of years, or even every single year, there's a new kind of like a keyword, like something that everybody's spitting.
Buzzword?
Yeah, the new buzzword. Exactly. Thank you. Every single year, there's a new buzzword about people analytics. One year is like data democratization. Another year is skill based organization, and another year is like a Gen AI. Like every single year, there's a new buzzword. We've not really spent enough time to really think about what is a value that we need to add and we can add to the business. So being able to find that balance is really important, and I really like 10 years sounds like a long time, but I think because the potential we have for this field, and because of the distractions that we got from the explosive technological development over the last decade, I really think that we have a long way to go and a lot of potential to still to realize in basically our true value proposition, which is to provide decision intelligence about people to organizations.
You now are not only doing people analytics, you have HR technology
Correct.
as well. What part does it play in this equation? How does it influence people analytics? How is generative AI influencing it? How do you think about it?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So I started taking over HR technology at my current organization earlier this year. To my surprise, I thought it was going to be, about learning the tools and know how everything works and keep it moving for some time, right? However, almost immediately we start talking about how we can replace a lot of these functionalities, these current functionalities with Gen AI technologies, which I think is like, again, like we live in such an era of explosive technological development. There's not so much, there's almost an undertone of like, oh, let's make a leap forward and just think about how we can embed AI in all of this and don't care about the functionalities or the technology that are going to be obsolete in 2-3 years down the road anyways.
Well, so what's the HR tech stack of a forward-looking company in 2 years from now? Or just the people analytics tech stack of that?
I think HR tech, people on his tech stack, the same, I think, is one that is going to be hyper integrated with Gen AI, right? In every
Or does a people analytics vendor exist? Does an HCM exist? Does an ATS that has people analytics functionality exist? Is it just everybody's plugging into big one Gen AI tool that does everything for them? What is it?
Well, I think in the short term, these vendors will still exist, but for users are going to have a way more integrated experiences. Very realistically, on the horizon is that, I think employees are going to interact with one point of contact, which is a enterprise Gen AI agent, and having that agent working with a ton of other agents in the back end to process their requests, their questions. And I think that is a very realistic way of operation that we're going to see a few years from now.
So it's just a GUI or a graphical user interface, and it's a bunch of data and a bunch of AI on top of that data. That is, yeah. That's it.
Yeah. And I know
it's DaaS, it's not SaaS, and it's a GUI.
Exactly. And I know quite a few organizations are already working towards that, including my own.
Yeah. Creative destruction at its finest.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here?
The only answer is up. That is a very Shane answer. Here, I'm definitely picking up the habit from him.
Yeah, there's definitely things I think about him to this day. He's a great dude. Well, you want to do some Cole's Corner?
Yeah, sure. Let's hit it.
Welcome to Cole's Corner.
All right, let's do some rapid fire. Is it best to do people analytics at a big company, a small company / startup, or a consulting firm, and why?
Mid-sized startups.
Why?
Because that's where I am.
Yeah, but you've been at big companies, you've been at consulting firms.
I have been in big companies, I've been at consulting companies. I think it's really fun to be kind of the early member or even the founder of People Analytics in a mid-sized company. I think and that's what I have been doing the last 5 years or so. And it's really cool because in these organizations, when I joined them, we're all going through this like hyper growth phase. It's not about, there's not a lot of predecessing or rule books or playbooks that you can follow. It's really something that you're building things from the ground up. You're assessing all of the opportunities and directions that you can take, and you have to be assertive about the directions that you take, and really like selling People Analytics to your stakeholders, making them realize that the value and the impact that you can create with the data and with the insights that we have. Over the past 5 years, I've had this conversation with many stakeholders and employees and leaders at my organizations, where they said, like, what is People Analytics? I've never heard of it. What do you do? And I start my sales pitch. It's like, this is what we do. Here are a few examples where we can add great values to your organization. I really enjoy that process.
What's a place you've never been to that you'd most like to go, and why?
Place I've never been to. There's a lot. Greenland. I don't know why it popped in my head. I think maybe it's because it was never on my radar as a place to go. And earlier this year, because of the publicity it got, I was like, what is so good about that place? And I looked into it and I was like, yeah, that was a lot of fun. It's a very different society. It's the one that for the one that I live in today, I want to experience the difference.
Yeah, I hear it's got a big ice sheet. I hear it has rare earth minerals, apparently.
Yeah, apparently so. Highly valuable ones.
It has a geostrategic importance in terms of where it sits with the ice melting in the Northern Ocean, and capital is there. And I think its largest city has less than 50,000 people.
Yeah, I know. If it's so valuable, it must be worth visiting.
Exactly. I feel like I heard a funny story that Greenland was called Greenland and Iceland was called Iceland to throw people off, because Iceland is actually a really desirable place and Greenland's really not.
Yeah.
In terms of like ancient sailors or something like that. I've
heard of the same story. Yeah, I've never validated it.
Yeah, it could be an old wives' tale. Who knows? But why do you do what you do?
In terms of people analytics?
Or any of it, but yeah.
Why do I do what I do? Well, that's a deep question, Cole. I think that I've actually spent quite a few years to try to answer that question myself as well. We talked about me growing up in China, which is Chinese culture is very different from American culture in terms of your kind of the personal pursuits of life goal, right? Culture which that I grew in, there's not as much emphasis on what do you want to do as an individual, but a lot more emphasis on, you need to do this for your family or the people who care about you, the people who placed expectation onto you. And that kind of was the cultural norm and social norm. And, the recent years after, obviously after leaving the American culture for over a decade, this is a much more individualistic culture. I was influenced to start really think like, what is my personal need? Like, what is it that I would like to fulfill? And I think that my answer at the end of the day does not drift too far from what I was expected, but I really just thinking about it from a different perspective. I still do what I love to do because I want to feel like a valuable person to the society, to the people I care about, and to the people who care about me.
I got one big question for you.
Sure.
So it's a different kind of experience being a people analytics team of one. And there, I guess, are some famous stories of, VC, Silicon Valley types that are making wagers on when the first one-person billion-dollar company evaluation is going to happen.
Sure.
Organization.
Yeah.
When is the first one-person leading people analytics team going to exist, and what is going to have to happen to make that happen?
I mean, I think it already exists today. I think that generally, and I don't have data to support it, you probably have data from your partnership, your work. My assumption is that the size of people analytics teams, or really like any team, is reducing. And, analytics in general is being disrupted by AI, as in that there's a lot of vendors, a lot of technologies have done, the work that used to take many analysts, data engineers to do. And the one-person team would then focus on utilize these technologies and, to create insights and data stories that drive, impact for the organization. And I, again, I don't have data for it, but I do believe that kind of team exists already.
You want to do some what am I reading?
Sure.
All right. So the first article I've got, frequent mention on the podcast. I haven't covered him much lately. Ethan Mullick, citing some research about how today's AIs are already hyper persuasive. And he's talking about this controversial study that was done on Reddit users without their knowledge.
Yeah.
That showed that LLMs are actually able to be superhuman in their persuasive ability beyond what humans could do in terms of trying to persuade Reddit users to change their beliefs. And I don't know. I wrote about this in one of my paywalled articles. I'm not going to talk about what I talked about there, but what did you think about this study and about its implications for what's going on right now?
I think it's highly believable. I mean, the thing about it is that you can ask AI to persuade you either way. Like I think I've early on, I think this like very early 2023 when ChatGPT first came out, I had a little debate with it, about my pursuit of LinkedIn popularity. And I was like, give me reasons why I should do this and give me reasons why I should not do this. And it gave me profounding reasons either way. So I end up determining it's not valuable, which is why I still continue to seek human advices from people like yourself, which I tend to, at the time to believe more. And I think now knowing how LM works, I think I've drifted away from seeking opinions from it because I believe that Jane, I don't really have opinions. It is still a summarization of everyone else's opinion in the world online, and I would seek advices and suggestions from real humans that I know in life who I already trust.
So who you trust?
Well, I trust you. I trust Shane.
Yeah, Shane's a good one.
Yeah.
He'll definitely give you some advice that not everybody else will give too, which is good. Let me hit you with the next article. So we had Mark Efron on the podcast a while back. This is some research that was done by his company called the Talent Strategy Group, where they looked at Fortune 50 chief human resource officers or chief people officers, depending on what the company called them, and just kind of did a little study of them demographically to understand, what leads somebody to the C-suite of HR. Mm-hmm. And what they found was 79% of them are female, 60% of them are appointed via internal succession, i.e. they came from within HR. 27% of them served as a previous CHRO, chief people officer, so presumably they served at some other company and then moved to that company.
Yeah.
The average incumbent tenure was 5.2 years. 12.5% of them had no HR experience prior to the appointment. Yeah. And 48% of them had a role in their career outside of HR prior to being the CHRO. What did you think about this one?
The first stat gave me a lot to think about because I think when I started my HR career 10 years ago, I've read a gender study on CHRO roles that had very similar data than this. And I wonder how many of these female CHROs are the only female C-suite in the entire C-level team. And what does that feel like for them, right? And it's sad that we haven't really been being able to achieve gender diversity, gender balance at our leadership level, at our executive level, in organizations at large, despite the pushes from many HR professionals like myself. So, I think it's great that we are, the females take the seats for CHRO roles more than other genders. However, it if you look at the gender stats in any other C-suite role, it's probably like much less, which means that you're going to be the only gender diverse executive on a very non-diverse non-diverse team, and it creates a lot of challenges for your work. And I'm saddened by that.
Wait, what about this from a people analytics lens? How do we support these type of leaders effectively?
Just like all type of leaders, I think that a big part of our work is D&I analytics, right? And I know this phrase today is
I heard that was against the law now.
I heard it's against the law. I heard it's controversial. At least I don't care what we do. I don't care if we call it something else, just to get through the red tape. I think we need to continue to pursue that work, because at some point, it is my optimistic belief that at some point it's going to be legalized again. And if we stop here, we would have lost a lot of the investment and efforts that we've made. I don't know if you know about this. So in China, obviously we had it is a society where we had thousands of years of tradition of prioritizing the male genders. And it doesn't mean that feminism did not develop at all during the thousands years of history, right? At one point of our history, women had developed our own language to communicate, to get past the regulations of education, schooling, economical activities, right? And when I'm thinking about D&I, it's even though this piece of work is suppressed right now, I think as resilient as we are, we still need to continue to push for this stream of work, continue to nurture it in organizations that are forward thinking, that do care about equity, diversity, and inclusiveness. And when we're in a future stage, we can look back and say, despite all else, we still made progresses.
Yeah. All right. The last article I've got, we used to cover his stuff quite a bit. I haven't seen many things he's published lately, so I don't know if he's publishing as much, but Dr. John Sullivan has a blog, and it says, which employees add the most value? And so he kind of talks about how you identify HIEs, which he calls high impact employees, and then goes about quantifying some of the value that they produce for organizations. How to maximize, if you want your business to perform its best, you should place your HIEs into HIPs, which are high impact positions. So get high impact employees and put them into your high impact positions. And then if you want to maintain high levels of impact within these roles, obviously prioritize the filling of high impact jobs, widen the reward differential between top and bottom performers, act proactively to retain your high impact employees and maintain your impacts by facilitating targeted internal movement. So being kind of more heavy handed about moving these employees around. What did you think about this article?
I'm supportive of it. I think it said all the right things. But like a lot of articles that are about best practices or methodologies, it is easier said than done, right? I think that I've worked at many organizations that had a goal of using a data-driven process or approach to identify high potential employees, high impact employees, right? And that is it's always a fun type of project, but requires a lot of alignment within your organization in terms of how you are thinking about measuring, quantifying skill sets and competencies that impact, which is not always easy to do.
What do you think about the component? Because I think everybody understands you need to know who your high impact employees are.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think everybody understands you need to know your high impact positions.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think where you lose a lot of people is what it seems to proclaim is like basically, and then once you figure that out, play favorites and pay unfairly. Which I remember in Laszlo Bock's Work Rules book, which was very popular a while back, he has a chapter called Pay Unfairly.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had some guests on the podcast who have talked about the number one reason why people rail against this is when you start to differentiate pay and you start to differentiate preferences for certain people in their career. So some people's careers get accelerated while others don't.
Yeah.
To your point about DEI earlier,
yeah.
that actually has a strong relationship to why some people have railed against it as well, is the perceived unfairness of it, whether it's real or perceived, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, and how does that play out in the real world?
I think that, organizations are always going to reward employees who created more values for the organization, right? Like that's just how the capitalistic world works. The tricky thing about it is really equity and fairness. And I think you mentioned that. How do we take the biases, the favorism from this process? I think it's incredibly hard to achieve, and I think data can play a huge role in it. But if you really want to achieve that perfect state of complete fairness, complete equity, you need to have really good data. You need to have really good, modeling. You need to have really good insights. You need to have a people analytics team who places ethics in the center of their operations, and really be the one that serves up, intelligence and insights that are centered around ethics and do no harm mantra. It is. I do think it's a perfect state. That is a North Star. We can't get there, but it'll take time.
Yeah. One of the things I think about sometimes is how the word equity, I think they should figure out a new word. And the reason why is because the word equity has 4 definitions. and therefore, when people talk about it, it's always like this game. I'm trying to figure out which definition are they talking about.
Yeah.
And so there's like equities, which is like another word for stocks.
Yeah.
Right. There's equity holders, like people who are owners of the company. Right.
Yeah.
There is equity in the sense of like equity theory from academics. It was like, are your rewards proportional to your inputs? And then there's like equity, which is kind of like the equality of outcome or fairness components that people talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think sometimes there's actually strategic ambiguity there when people are talking about it, because they just want to be able to say whatever they want.
Yeah.
But if you're actually trying to have like a real above board conversation about it, I think you have to define your words and terms, and maybe we should need a new word there.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's throwing people off.
Yeah. Maybe we should I don't know, like, do you speak any other language that with something that we can steal?
Do I speak any other languages? No. I'm very American in that sense. But do I know of another word? No, also no. I mean, it was the weird thing is when I was in graduate school, we did like learned a ton about equity theory. All right. And then when I came out into the real world and DEI became a term, I was like, oh, that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And then I figured out, like, I was like, oh, sometimes that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And then I realized, like, oh, there's like some words and terms games that are always going on. And me being the person I am, I'm like hyper literal. And so I'm like, I'm always confused by this stuff. So,
Yeah.
well, regardless, how did you feel about this one? Does this have a different feel today? I think you listen to the podcast sometimes. What did you think about this episode?
I think it's been great. I mean, it definitely met my expectation of what a good podcast is. You know, I think I told you I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. It has, for me, you know, I like a very efficient way of getting information. I'm the one who's like, you know, getting impatient with the AI now. That is now taking like more than a minute to be thinking about something. And I'm like, oh, that's a simple question. Think faster, AI. So, you know, I think podcasts had been in a lot of podcasts that I listen to. You know, my biggest criticism is that it's so slow for me to, like, you know, retrieve and process information, and it's just not a very dense communication kind of tool. But you know, I understand, you know, podcasts for a lot of people is like kind of a background music, right? Like you're playing in the background while you're, you know, doing driving or doing house chores. So I definitely, you know, I've thought that if I've ever get on a podcast, I wanted to be a good background, you know, background noise. I wanted to be something, you know, chatty, something casual, something fun. And I think we've done exactly that today. What do you think?
Well, I wanted to. One of the things I was thinking about as I was prepping for this, I was actually looking forward to this episode, and I haven't felt that way in a little while, and I know in prepping for this and getting to work on the article with you, I don't know, there was this moment that stuck out to me, and that's one of the reasons why I was really looking forward to it. Is I remember talking to you and being like, "We're cool, like you're a part of the community," and I think you always felt like an outsider.
Yeah.
And I wanted to give you a chance to kind of like authentically express yourself.
Yeah.
Because I think you're a really cool person. I think you're, you know, whether you want to be LinkedIn famous or not, like I think people should know who you are. And I think you're doing really great work. And so just want to have a chance to talk about that today. And again, it probably had a different tone and a different feel than a lot of our episodes, but it was what I wanted for you. So hopefully you liked it.
I appreciate it. I really and I really enjoyed it. And I want to kind of you know, throw the opportunity back to you too, Cole, because you're one of these people who had a lot of influence on me in this industry. And you know, I think when we first met, you told me, "Oh, I'm a cynical person."
Mark, not wrong.
It's not wrong, and I love that side of you. But you've actually taught me some great lessons, not just about you know, people analytics, but in life as well. And I think you mentioned before that not a lot of your guests or people you talk to want to hear those life lessons from you. So I wanted to give you that opportunity. What is a life lesson that you want to share?
Well, I got nothing right now, but the thing I think I've been thinking about a lot lately, which is kind of adjacent to this, is what I call Cole Napper versus Cole Napper TM, right? And the podcast, the newsletters, I do a lot of other stuff through my work too, where like webinars and speak at conferences and stuff too. And I realized that, and I realized it a while ago, but it's actually really been weighing on me a lot recently, is people know me for a persona, but they don't know me for me. And that's weird to say because some people have spent, 50, 100 hours listening to me and they feel like they really know me. But I realize that they know Cole Napper TM. They know a persona. And one of the things that I kind of actually have a little almost like resentment for is like you've gotten to know like the real me, like the cynical me, and the cynical me doesn't actually show up that much on the podcast.
Yeah.
And so I think I appreciate you saying that, and I don't know. I think there's a part of this where people really feel like they get to know you, but they don't.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Wanted to have kind of a real episode today, and I might lean into this a little bit more as time goes along, because I've been thinking a lot about like how can I switch this thing up, because frankly I've been getting kind of bored with how things have been going. And it's not that they're bad, and it's not that our guests are bad. I think they've been great. Everybody's been great.
Yeah.
But it's just like I've been thinking a lot about like, why do I even do this?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, why even give people a platform? Why does this even matter?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it needs to come back to like, I need to be getting enjoyment out of it first.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things that are going on right now about feeling like I'm a persona, not a person, hasn't feel good.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of tired of it, frankly.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm going to need to change some things up. And so I don't know. I appreciate you being here and kind of being a part of that discussion, because I know we've talked a little bit about that offline. And yeah, thank you for doing this.
Yeah. My pleasure.
Anywhere people can find you, Yuyan? Any CDs, mixtapes you're selling? Anything cool that people need to check out?
Yeah, definitely find me on LinkedIn. Even though I'm not going to post every day or try to be LinkedIn famous anymore. I'm going to be more authentic in what I'm posting. So, follow me on LinkedIn, check out my posts from time to time. You might like them. And I've started recently a blog, a newsletter called Amazing Works. So, again, not going to post a lot, but I'm trying to have like authentic voices in everything I write.
Yeah. Well, check out that series on Yuyan's blog. It's on Substack. And yeah, she's fantastic. Well, so you've been listening to Directionally Correct, a People Analytics podcast with Cole and Scott. And today's guest, Yuyan Sun. Good to be here, Yuyan.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.